This is kind of a typical setup for a week we might have here at Heinz Hall. We're set up right now for Ravel's La Valse, and that takes 5 percussionists. I'm usually the one who marks out who's going to play what. Because sometimes, like in the La Valse, we just have a whole score form of all the percussion parts, and it takes some planning ahead of time to decide who's going to play what, so we're not bumping into each other and dropping instruments. One of the things that we deal with all the time is the music varies from week to week. This week is a classical week, and these are most of the instruments we're using, but next week, for example, or the week after that is a pops week, and there could be a whole different array of instruments out here. And for each of these percussion instruments, each of us in the section has spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours, believe it or not, playing just these instruments. For example, just the xylophone or just the snare drum, and even just this beautiful triangle. Sometimes you might see us just pick up the triangle and play one gem of a note. Sometimes there's other techniques that you have to do. In fact, in this week, Karen has to play with 2 sticks on the triangle here to execute some of the rhythms that Ravel wrote. Depending on what music is coming up, and we're usually looking at music anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 weeks ahead of time. Each of us will sort of dig in more. Like if I have a big xylophone part out, I'll be going over that weeks in advance. As we have to play with 4 mallets, and you get grip on them and you manipulate them with your fingers. And anybody can do this in a matter of seconds. It takes a little practice, and some of these instruments, percussion instruments, take a lot more maintenance. Even when I have a week where I'm not playing any vibraphone or marimba or xylophone, you have to stay in touch with it. Because all of a sudden, you know, one week will come up and you got this xylophone part or a pop show with all this vibe music, and it needs to feel like you're playing the instrument all the time. 4 mallets is about as many as we hold. A lot of the times it's just 2. We're backstage again in Heinz Hall, and these are some of our road trunks down here that go out on all of our runouts and tours, and we'll load them up with whatever instruments we need for the music we're playing. This one happens to be one of the places we keep some of our cymbals. Everyone holds something special as far as sounds, like people. We have a lot of cymbals here and in other places in the building that we get to choose from to realize the music. Cymbals are a lot of fun, and percussionists, when they really get into it, especially really appreciate having a lot of cymbal colors to choose from. This is one of 2 bass drums that the Pittsburgh Symphony has. I actually keep some of my own here also that are different sizes that we'll pull out for a contemporary. And the bass drum, a lot like the cymbals, they're actually used a lot in the orchestra, and most of the time, very little is actually written in the music about the kind of sound that the instrument should provide. It's really up to the imagination and the experience of the player to decide how to strike the drum, what kind of stick to use to strike the drum. So they have different sounds, and there's different techniques for playing the bass drum.
Are you damping that with the knee and the pad?
I'll use this lamb's wool pad. Hi, Bob. There's 3 different examples of snare drums. Sometimes in our parts it's referred to as tambour. In this case, this is called Piccolo snare drum. It's about as small as they get. It's 13 inches by 3 inches. This actual drum I made, and I'm using it in the Bartók Miraculous Mandarin. And Bartók was an extremely creative composer when it came to percussion writing. And he actually wrote for a Piccolo snare drum, and he also wrote for Tamburo Grande, which is a deep snare drum, which we have here. So, same idea. It's two heads with some snares across the bottom. These happen to be made out of gut. They're organic. And on this drum, they're wire. And on this drum, which is a different drum I'm using in La Valse, these are cable and wire snares. This shell happens to be aluminum, and it's obviously a different sound. This drum. And the piccolo. So that, again, this is just a fraction of the drums we have. Most of the time, the music is not that specific. So we, based on experience and imagination, sometimes input from the conductor, sometimes we make a decision like what sound would sound good, because really what we do back here, we put a lot of thought into it. And for all the subtleties that the string players get, and all the different techniques which are extraordinary and beautiful, we have almost probably as many different techniques and ways to play these instruments as all my other colleagues in the orchestra. And we basically have to, because everybody is so incredibly talented and they're playing one of these beautiful, expensive instruments. You get sucked up into it. You have to have all these different sounds at your disposal, and then use your imagination to come up with what's going to fit.